There's so many things in life that creates anxiety, taking a test, giving a speech, being on a podcast, so many things. And our next guest is going to share with us some tips on how to alleviate that anxiety.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Hey, Giant Builders. So this is great information, and maybe especially for your kids, like who are taking tests and things like that, and maybe think about other people who have shared tips to help us as parents with our kids. So I'm going to share those links below too, so you can hopefully enjoy those podcasts if you haven't seen them yet. All right, let's go. Welcome, Giant Builders. Today's guest is Craig Merriweather. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Hi, Lois. How are you? I'm doing well. I've been looking forward to this conversation, so glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. That was very nice. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I am a hypnotherapist, and so I use hypnosis to help people deal with issues they may be struggling with, whether it may be anxiety, anger issues, or maybe some trauma, whether it happened last month, last year, or 40 years ago, things they may be holding on to, any sort of hurt and pain, or if they need to, maybe boost some confidence in their life. Maybe they have to give the keynote speech at the big conference coming up and they want a little more confidence, a little more self-assurance. Or, I've been working with kids with, athletes, and, maybe they got a little a lack of confidence. They were doing great, and then all of a sudden they're in a slump. Work with that. So whether a veteran with maybe some PTSD issues, or just mom dealing with some anxiety or stress, it's if you're struggling with something that maybe the issues are instructions held within the subconscious mind, it can help with that. So.
Okay, so I think you just described 100% of the population.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like everybody fits into one of those categories. So let's
Yeah.
talk about some of the high school situations, because that kind of hit a trigger with me. Like, I hated science tests. I didn't mind
Mm.
accounting or music or anything else, any
Yeah.
business one, but I hated science. So, like, what causes that friction where we just have a really hard time with certain categories?
Yeah, I mean, of course, people have different dispositions to certain things. Some people more uh, attracted to music or athletics or science or math. And it's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just unfortunately sometimes school, due to the nature of having to teach, 40 children in one classroom, have to kind of homogenize it. And I think a lot of the issues people have, maybe let's just say with test taking, is that fear of failure. It's that fear of judgment. And there's a aspect of school that we all grew up with, starting somewhere around elementary school, where there was a kind of punishment if you didn't do well. You got an F or a D on a test or the report you turned in, even though you worked on it really, really hard. And, maybe you get in trouble with your parents, maybe you get grounded, you don't get to go to the dance or go hang out with your friends, or nowadays, I guess you get your laptop, or not laptop, but your iPad taken away or whatever it is. And so there's an inherent fear of failing because there's consequences. Testing in the grander scheme of things, it just should show where you're at, what information you know. But it actually doesn't, because you may know the information backwards and forwards. You studied, you can, during the practice test, you do well. Maybe you're in a study group and everybody knows the information, but when it comes time to actually take the test, there's that fear of failure, that fear of judgment. And because you're now turning on the stress response, because there's this imagined uh, threat. And sure, there's real threats in the world. I live in Arizona. I live in Flagstaff. We're up in the mountains, but down south, in the desert, you could be hiking on a trail and there's a rattlesnake in the trail. That's a danger. That's a real danger. There's fire coming towards your house, a natural disaster happening. There are real dangers, a fight in the street. you can find yourself in real danger. That fear is necessary. A certain amount of anxiety is necessary. That's what keeps you from walking down the dark alley at midnight, even though it's a shortcut home. And then keep to the lighted streets. It may take you an extra 15 minutes, but keep yourself safe. And we need that. That's what keeps us alive. That kind of warning signal of fear and anxiety, the mind sends into the body. So you get that twinge of, maybe that dark alley looks a little dangerous. Maybe that rattlesnake rattling its tail, maybe I should move away and walk way far around it so we don't annoy each other too much further. But when it comes to something like a test or maybe giving a presentation, you're in business and you have some investors who are interested in your business, or the board of the directors, or you got tapped to give the keynote speech at the big conference. That's not really a threat to your survival, to your safety. But again, there's that fear of judgment, that fear of failure. And so you start thinking about the test, and it's like, okay, well, I know the material, but oh man, it's going to be multiple choice, or is it going to be essay? And I don't know exactly what questions are going to be asked. And all of a sudden, that fear starts to turn up, and that anxiety starts to turn up. And the problem is that it starts pulling nutrients and fuel and blood supply and oxygen away from the vital systems of your body and into the big muscles of your arm. 300% more blood is moving to the big muscles of your arms when you're stressed and anxious. 300% more blood moving to big muscles of your legs to escape, because it's a survival mechanism. But that's got to come from somewhere. So now the power of your immune system is starting to turn down. The power on your digestive system is starting to turn down. You start to shallow breathe because you're not using your full respiratory system by breathing into your abdomen, flattening out your diaphragm and getting air into the bottom of your lungs. This brain of ours takes 20% of the oxygen we breathe in. So now you're depriving your brain of the literal fuel it needs for rational, calm, intelligent thinking. You start to, get that tunnel vision to look singularly at the threat and turning down all the information in your periphery. And, you may even get physical symptoms like your stomach starts to get upset, or you start to sweat or something. And that's not an optimal position to be in when you're taking a test or giving a presentation or a speech or something. And so again, it's a warning signal that there's danger, but unfortunately it's not a life-threatening situation. And because of maybe something that's happened in the past, you got a bad grade on a test or a report, or you got in trouble because you didn't do well, you now have this, instruction installed within your subconscious mind to be afraid of this upcoming test. And therefore, you may predict the future and do poorly on the test. What you practice, you get better at. And that's great when you want to learn how to play the piano or the guitar, or learn dance or martial arts or a foreign language. Learning to walk when you're 12 months old or so, learning to ride a bike. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anxiety? You can literally wire that into your brains. And so that's what a lot of the work, with therapeutic hypnosis is about, is not only training your nervous system, but kind of rewiring your brain to the extent that you're installing new instructions into your subconscious mind to empower you and to strengthen you. And you're allowed to do that. Otherwise, it's just going to happen by default. And you're going to go with default settings on what instructions you're enter. So if you are interested in taking control of that, you certainly can. You have the power, the ability, the right to install the appropriate instructions within your subconscious mind to live your best life. Again, mainly your subconscious mind is to keep you safe and protected, but just maybe using instructions that it picked up when you were a child. And maybe as a child, it did keep you safe, to hide or to keep yourself small. That may have been the best thing you could have done when you were a child, because maybe there was trauma in the house. Maybe things when you were growing up weren't very safe. But that's not going to work when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, even later in life. And so you're allowed to change them. And you can do it in a really safe and gentle way. It's just most people just don't know you can do that.
So how do you do something like that? How do you eliminate anxiety or boost your confidence?
Depends on what the issue is. If there's a specific incident that happened in the past, that can be reframed in a way that makes it safer and gentler, and therefore will turn off the stress response when a test comes up. So thinking if there's a traumatic incident, you may not even know why in your conscious mind, but subconsciously you do. You know why you're turning on the stress response because you're only doing it when you're walking into the test, not when you're walking into school or the classroom or going out to your car, or there's a specific situation and when that stress response is turned on. So your subconscious mind knows when to turn it on. So you know why you're doing it subconsciously in your unconscious. And so sometimes it's just as easy to ask while you're in a relaxed state of mind and body, you quiet down that conscious level of mind. And sometimes you just, where do you feel that anxiety and what is it attached to? What thought or memory is it attached to? And there's a lot of techniques and exercises within the field of therapeutic hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and those kind of modalities to help you reframe those old feelings and those old memories. Otherwise, it may be just needing to boost confidence. And a lot of times to boost confidence, you just have to pretend. And it may sound a little silly, a little ridiculous, but you're confident in a lot of things. And it may just be, tying your shoes or walking down the street or riding a bicycle. You're confident in a lot of things, zipping up your jacket. And it may be, say, oh, well, that's a small thing. So, yeah, but you're confident that you know you can do it. You know you can go over to your shoes, put them on, tie the bow, or zip up your jacket. You know you can do that, right? Yes. Okay, well, now it's just applying that feeling state of confidence of where you feel it and attaching it to the thing you would like to have more confidence about. So a lot of it's just pretending that you're in the future, being the person you want to be. And we know this works because of a study that was done, well, many studies since then, but the first study that was done was back in the 1990s. And it was a research study wanting to watch the brain, because in the 80s and 90s, we started getting the MRI technology and the SPECT scans and things. We could watch the brain in real time. And we wanted to, the researchers back in the 1990s, wanted to watch the brain as it learned something new. And so they picked piano and they brought a bunch of volunteers in who didn't know how to play piano. And they taught them the little exercises and scales and songs you learn as a beginning piano player. And these volunteers came in 2 hours a day for a week, 7 days straight, and just practiced piano, practiced the exercises, the scales, and little songs. They had a second group that just came in and tinkered around the piano without learning anything, just played the piano and plunked around and just didn't do anything other than just randomly hit keys with their fingers. They had a third group that was a control group. They didn't do anything because when you're doing this kind of research, you want to compare and contrast. Here's a brain that doesn't do anything, doesn't learn anything. Here's a brain that learns piano. What are the differences? And what's interesting about this research is they had a fourth group, and the fourth group only pretended to play piano. So they brought them in, showed them the simple little scales and the exercises, the little songs you play. But instead of sitting at the piano, they sat over at the recliner or at the couch, and they closed their eyes and they just pretended in their imagination to play the piano. Never touched the piano at all. So at the end of the week, they look at everybody's brain again. The control group, nothing changed. They didn't do anything new. They didn't learn anything new. Nothing changed in their brain. No big mystery there. The group who played the piano and practiced, learned new things, scales, exercises, little songs. They developed a new neural network in the part of the brain for music. Of course they did. They're learning music. They're learning new information. They're practicing something. And so the neurons connected together. And of course, they're learning music. So it's in the part of the brain associated with music. So, and no big mystery there. That was kind of a no-brainer. The group who just randomly played a piano without any focus, no new neural pathways because they didn't learn anything new. Okay, well, that makes sense. No big mystery there. But what's fascinating is the group who only pretended to play the piano. They also developed the same neural network in the same part of the brain as those who actually put their hands on the piano, worked the keys with their fingers, heard the music, read the sheet music with their eyes. But they only did it in their imagination. They only pretended. And they literally rewired their brain in less than a week. That's the power people have. A lot of us may remember, a lot of your listeners may remember the Soviet Union in the 1970s, how dominant they were in gymnastics. Nadia Comaneci and all of them. They won the gold, the silver, and the bronze. They won all the world championships, and no one could figure out why they were so far more dominant than any other gymnastics team in the world. And at the end of the 70s, early 1980s, some of the gymnasts and some of the coaches started to defect. And what the world found out is that the gymnastics team of the Soviet Union was spending at least 50% of their time in mental rehearsal, meaning they'd practice on the mats, to twist, the tumbles, the turns, the spins, maybe the uneven bars or the rings or the parallel bars. They'd practice. But then later in the day, they'd sit on the couch, they'd sit on the recliner, close their eyes and just pretend they were running their routine successfully. Maybe it was just the last 30 seconds of the dismount off the uneven bars, or maybe it was the twist and the turns and toes of the entire routine on the mat. But they would imagine it in their brain successfully. And now we know why that worked for them, because they are literally wiring that success into their brain. So what becomes a little scary is, what if you're practicing failure? What if you're imagining the failure of the test, or you're have to give the presentation at the big conference coming up in a couple months, and you're falling asleep, but in your mind you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get up there and I'm gonna stumble over my words, I'm gonna forget what I'm gonna say, and my PowerPoint and my pictures are gonna be upside down, and people are gonna laugh and they're boo and they're gonna throw things at me, and you're literally rehearsing failure. Wouldn't that not also wire that into your brains? And then lo and behold, you don't do well at the presentation, or you're thinking about the test that's coming up. And all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm going to do poorly. And I know the information, but the last time I took a test, it didn't go well. And you're rehearsing how badly you're going to do. Would you not also be wiring that into your system, into your nervous system, into your brain? And so a lot of this work isn't just kind of healing a past trauma that may have happened, whether that was last week, last month, or 40 years ago. But it also is like programming future success into your mind. And it can be just as easy as feeling that confidence of tying your shoes. You know you can tie your shoes. You've been doing it for so long, you know you can do it. What does that feel like? And now with that feeling, imagine yourself taking that test, acing all because you know the information. You've done the study groups, you've gone through the book, you know all the answers, you've done the practice tests, you know you can do it. Now apply that confidence. And then before you walk into the classroom, put yourself in state. Every athlete, that whether you're an Olympic athlete, whether you're a professional athlete, every actor that maybe goes on the stage or in front of a camera, they'll put themselves in state for who they need to be. And so an athlete will, before they walk up to the starting line, or if they're doing gymnastics, the mat, or whatever they're doing, they'll put themselves in the zone. They'll put themselves in state. So we should do that too with whatever you're doing, whether you're taking a test, whether you're about to give a presentation for your business, for the big conference that you're doing. Maybe just going home after a long, hard day at work. Put yourself in the state of being a father, being a mother, being a good parent, or a friend if you're going to visit a friend. Who do you need to be in this situation? And put yourself in state. So before you walk into the classroom, or something, nowadays lots of people are taking tests at home on their laptops. Before you walk into the room, sit down at the computer or go to the classroom, take a few minutes, put yourself in state. What does it feel like to feel relaxed and confident? Pick a time in the past where you felt calm and confident. And now bring yourself into that state and expand it. Is it a color? What does confidence look like to you? Is it a color? Does it shape? Is it big? Is it small? Make it stronger, make it bigger, and then armor yourself. Sort of like you're putting on a suit of armor, or you're like Iron Man from the Avenger movies. Get that armor around you and then walk into that test. And it may seem a little silly, a little ridiculous to pretend you're putting on the armor of confidence or strength or power. But the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And this is most noticeable when somebody's having a nightmare. And maybe you, Lois, or your listeners have had that experience of just having a strange nightmare in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter how crazy or how ridiculous it is. A gigantic cheeseburger and his two hot dog friends are chasing down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's never going to happen. And yet, even in deep sleep, your mind, thinking you are in danger, has that kind of shoot first, ask questions later safety protocol, and it'll start armoring you with the stress response. Again, 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight the cheeseburger, or 300% more blood moving to big legs to escape the cheeseburger. This is literally changing your physiology. Your brain is creating the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol. You probably heard the crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. That's not coursing through your brain. These neuropeptides molecules the brain creates called neuropeptides dumping into your bloodstream, hundreds of millions of them, to send the message of emotion to your body, to the cells of your body. These are little molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, molecules of anger. This is all happening while in deep sleep. So you can imagine what's happening in your waking life. And so if you can imagine, you know, doing poorly on a test and creating a physical response of anxiety and sweating maybe a little bit, or an upset stomach, or your heart is racing, let alone a nightmare or something ridiculous like a cheeseburger is chasing you on the street. Well, if you can change your physiology in that way, let's use that to your advantage. Pretend you step into a suit of armor of confidence. Maybe that's a golden suit of confidence, or a blue suit of confidence, of cool, calm presence. Whatever it is for you, step into it, and then walk into the meeting or the test or the presentation you have to give, and see how much better you do. And so that's just a little uh, uh, just a few little ideas about what one could do in terms of dealing with it. Everybody's a little different. Everybody has different reasons for creating that physical response, but the mind knows why you're doing it. That's why it's doing it. That's why it doesn't do it when you walk into the grocery store. It's doing it when you're walking into a classroom, not when you walk home, but when you walk in a classroom. So it knows precisely when to do it. So therefore it knows why it's doing it. So a lot of times it may just be while relaxing the mind and body, asking, when you quiet down that conscious level of mind, you can access the unconscious and just ask, why is this happening? And you'll get an answer. Yeah. You're that powerful.
Oh, well, so what can we do, like as a parent, let's say, or a grandparent, to when we see, or would we actually notice anxiety over like a test or something like that in our child? Is there a sign to that? And then what would we do to help them?
Yeah, it's everybody's again different and responds to anxiety in maybe a slightly different way. Unfortunately, there isn't a telltale sign of, a siren or lights going off. And so it's just knowing your child and knowing if they're struggling. And so you kind of get a read on that. And again, it may just be as simple as ask, how are you feeling about this? And maybe ask some leading questions. Do you feel nervous about the test coming up? Do you feel anxious about the test coming up? This may be a little more of a struggle with a teenager who maybe wants to shut down and not admit that they're feeling nervous or something. But little kids are pretty honest about that kind of stuff if you have a decent communication with them. And so you can ask a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, it's like, how are you feeling? And in terms of being a parent, again, the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Little kids are great at this work. And some research, and there's a lot of research on hypnotherapy that's come out. Some of the research seems to indicate that kids do better at hypnotherapy than adults do, and adults do well at hypnotherapy. So you may want to ask your child where they feel that anxiety. So let's say they have to give a book report or a history report or something in sixth grade or something. They're 8, 9, 10 years old, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. And you sense maybe things aren't right with the report they have to give at the end of the week. Ask them, are you feeling nervous about this? How do you feel? And they say, well, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about it. And it's like, well, what if you close your eyes and tell me, where do you feel that anxiety? And point to it. Have them actually point to it. I do this work with adults. Point to where you feel the anxiety, and maybe their stomach. Some people, they feel in their arms, the back of the neck, the head, wherever. Where do you feel it? The throat, the neck, the shoulders. Where do you feel it? Okay, I feel it in, let's say, just say it's in their heart, they're in their chest. I feel it in my chest. All right, describe it to me. What color is it? It's black, it's red, it's yellow, it's whatever. Well, is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it heavy? Is it soft? Is it light? Is it big? Is this, describe it to me, and they'll describe it to you. And maybe it looks like a spiky red ball, or maybe it just feels like a heavy darkness. They'll describe it to you. And then have them do this. Pull it out. Take all that black gunk or that spiky red ball and pull it out. Now scrunch it up like a piece of paper and throw it behind you. There you go. It's all behind you now. And that's a great way to reduce the body. But now there's this void. Nature abhors a vacuum, as they say in science class. So I want you to put out in front of you a really positive image of strength and power. Have that there now. What's the first image that comes to you that means strength and power? Maybe it's a knight in shining armor on a horse, or a big, beautiful star, or the sun, or whatever. They'll come up with something, a big, beautiful dog, or maybe it's a person in their life. And what does that person have to say to them, about courage and strength? Well, I can have all the courage and strength I want, or it's going to be okay. That's right. I want you to grab that image. I want you to make it bigger, and I want you to pull it into your chest. I want you to fill yourself up with that and make it stronger, make it bigger. And that's just a little simple little exercise you can do with kids. You can do that with adults too. You can do that yourself. Because again, the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Just like you can change your physiology through a ridiculous nightmare, a very realistic nightmare, like a war veteran having a PTSD dream. Uh, Imagine just sensing where you feel it. You can even do an exercise like, of course, you're taking a test, let's say, or maybe you're a meeting at work or something. Your feet are going to be on the floor. And feel your feet on the floor. And now pretend that coming up from the center of the earth, from the energy, the strength of the center of the earth. Imagine a big vacuum tube is coming up and it attaches comfortably to the bottom of your feet. Now vacuum out all that stress and that anxiety. Just vacuum it down to the center of the earth. And now from up above, bring down the energy, the light, the frequency of strength and power. Now fill you up from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And now walk into the test, or walk into the meeting, or maybe you're in the middle of the test. Do that in the middle of the test and see how differently you feel. And so a lot of, I think, the issues come in that you don't think you can do anything about it. It's just the way it is. Anxiety starts, oh, well, maybe it'll be over by tomorrow. Well, do something about it. You have control over your nervous system. And a lot of what you can do is with the breath. So just take a deep breath into your belly. I know it's obnoxious. I know it's cliched to tell somebody who's dealing with anxiety to take a deep breath. But again, the brain takes 20% of the oxygen you breathe in. And when you're stressed, you tighten those stomach muscles, waiting for that 1-2 punch to the gut. So relax those stomach muscles, take a deep breath into your belly, into your abdomen, open up that diaphragm, get air way down the bottom of your lungs. If you feel where your lungs are, if it's safe for you to do so, if you're not driving a car, but your lungs are, if you feel your rib cage is like 2 inches or so from your hip bones. Your lungs are huge. So use the full amount of lungs and get that energy and that oxygen into your system. Cleanse out all the carbon dioxide and the gases and toxins from your system with the exhale, and breathe in all that oxygen. Fill your brain up with all the nutrients and the oxygen it needs for clear thinking. And that deep, slow, gentle, smooth breath will reset your nervous system. And what it actually triggers is the vagus nerve. We have these nerves that come out of our head. And that's that thing when you touch a hot pot, a signal goes up your arm, hey, into your brain. Hey, you're touching a hot pot. It goes back down. And you let go of the hot pot all within a millionth of a second. Well, the 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. It's attached to your eyes, to your ears, to muscles of your jaw, down to your past your vocal cords, to your heart, to your lungs, to your gut. Vagus is Latin for wander because it wanders all over the body. Well, the vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. There's the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, the fight or flight response, the parasympathetic, the relaxation response. That's where we need to be most of the time, when we feel centered and grounded and empowered, and all the systems of our body getting the right amount of energy, oxygen, blood supply to work at optimum levels. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's attached to your lungs. Breathing in slowly, gently, smoothly, deeply stimulates the vagus nerve, therefore activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. So taking a deep breath is literally the best way you have to reset your nervous system. It goes past your vocal cords. That's why humming feels so good. And it may be inappropriate to hum in the middle of class or to sing a little song, or do the om, or do the, foghorn. Oh. But what if you did that in your car before you walked into the meeting or the class? Or if you're at home and you're doing the test on your laptop or your computer, you can hum as loud as you want, probably. And so humming is good. And swaying, moving your body just a little bit. There's a comfort in swaying. And so if you're to take a deep breath in, while you're swaying, you could do that for, I mean, and probably not humming out loud in a class full of people or a meeting is appropriate. But if you're maybe at home on a laptop, or you're sitting in your car before the test or the meeting, or a room that's private, the bathroom even, if you're just take a deep breath in, exhale out through your mouth, sway a little bit. Ah. These are all ways to trigger the vagus nerve to activate and therefore stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. Really simple stuff. And so you have everything you need to regulate your nervous system. So it's that awareness that anxiety is happening, or stress, or anger, or whatever the situation is. And we all need a little bit of stress to get us out of bed and to get the report done on time for work or for school or whatever. So a little bit of stress is necessary. But when it becomes unresourceful, now we're ending up in anxiety and panic, and it's not very useful to us. And so turn it off. You have the ability to do so. You don't have to let it run its course for hours and hours. And as you become more aware of it, you'll notice it starting. So 0 to 10, 0 being the most peaceful you ever felt, 10 being the most anxious and panic you ever felt. Don't wait till it's a 9. Don't wait until it's an 8.5. Get it when it's a 2 or a 3. When the warning signals start up, and it's like, well, it's just a little bit of anxiety. I don't have time to deal with it. Well, you're not going to have time to deal with it when it's a 10. So deal with it when it's a 2 or a 3. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. And the more you're literally training your system to turn off the stress response. Now, again, we want the stress response. We don't want to get rid of it. We don't want to throw it out. That's what keeps us from peering over the edge of the Grand Canyon too far. That's what keeps us from going down the dark alley, from getting involved in a fight in a restaurant or a bar or something. So keep the stress response, but have it as a protection device. And when it comes up with something like maybe giving the speech at the big conference or the meeting, or in front of investors or the board of the directors, or you have to hire new people, or you're doing a job interview, or you're an actor or musician with an audition, or you have to take a test at school. And it's not just high school students, taking the SAT or final exams. Of course, there's university students taking tests, but also, taking the MCATs to get into medical school, or LSATs to get into law school. Or once you graduate law school, now you take the bar exam, let alone all the licensing exams you have to take to become a doctor or electrician or auto mechanic or plumber, police officer, firefighter. What if you're 65 years old and bored being retired, and now, well, I'll start a career as a real estate agent? You're going to have to take a test to get a real estate agent license. And maybe you haven't taken a test in, 45 years.
Yeah.
Tests happen all over the place all the time. I have a friend who's an auto mechanic, and it's some ridiculous, like a 5-hour test over 2 days, 10 hours of this test taking to get licensed, or for the state to be an auto mechanic. And so if you're troubled by, taking tests, that's pretty grueling. And so there's a lot of techniques and exercises. That's just a couple. But you have the ability to regulate your system. But just most of us just operate on default settings and then just let them run automatically without checking it. So be aware, notice when that anxiety is happening, get it when it's a 2 or a 3. You don't wait till it's at emergency levels, because of course then it's harder to deal with. Get the leak when it's a drip, not when it's just gushing and the pipes are exploding. And there's all these simple little exercises. Breathing is one of the best things you can do. That might be it for some people. There's techniques, other ways of dealing with it, because we're all different. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people are kinesthetic, and so there are all different ways of dealing with it. But you have the ability to to help with that. And just sometimes moving the body, whether you're swaying or if you have time, take a quick little walk. There's stairs, take some walk around up some stairs or down some stairs, exercise the body, walk outside if you can, and just breathe.
Yeah, breathing is
That'll do it.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
also have some resources for our listeners?
Yeah, well, if you want to go to my website, aceanytest.com, and you can download some recordings to program yourself for confidence. And these are a handful of, I think there's 5 different recordings that help you visualize confidence and program it into your nervous system into your brain. Visualization exercises. So there's some my gift to you, some free recordings to download to help program yourself for confidence. Your kids can listen to them. Your grandparents can listen to them.
Oh,
It's
that
for
sounds
everyone.
wonderful.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, Giant Builders, I'll add that link below. Craig, thank you so much. That was so helpful. And I wish my kids were younger so that I could help them through the testing a little
Yeah.
bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I struggle with it. I think a lot of people get into maybe the more healing modalities because of their own struggles. Certainly had my struggles with depression, anxiety. I know my son struggled with test anxiety. And so, yeah, you want to help them out. And look, now I have all these tools and techniques and strategies. So let's help out others while I'm at it.
that's wonderful. All right, Giant Builders, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.